Kore Mavinduka and welcome to Africa Good Morning, the show that keeps you up to date with the latest news in Africa and beyond. My name is Glenora Shipura, joined by Diana Master. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm wearing blue.
As usual, it's a Blue Monday.
Yes, I wanted to ask, yes. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too well, so I'm wearing blue. Like I said, it's a Blue Monday. My team has not been doing very well.
I see.
Yeah, Manchester United has been disappointing me, but we will get into that and the rest of the sports news with Ari Holgat later in the show. But also, here's what you can expect. COVID-19 no longer a global health emergency, says WHO. UNICEF, more than 1 million polio vaccines destroyed in Sudan. UK court jails Nigerian senator for 9 years of kidney harvesting plot. We'll be back with our top stories right after this.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
You're still watching Africa Good Morning. Let's get into your top stories. COVID-19 no longer a global health emergency, says WHO. The COVID-19 pandemic, which for over 3 years has killed millions of people, wreaked economic havoc and deepened inequalities, no longer constitutes a global health emergency, the WHO said on Friday. It is with great hope that I declare COVID-19 over as a global health emergency, WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus told reporters, estimating that the pandemic had killed at least 20 million people, nearly 3 times the official estimate. The move came after the WHO's Independent Emergency Committee on the COVID-19 crisis agreed during its 15th meeting on Thursday that the crisis no longer merited the organization's highest level of alert. But Tedros warned the decision did not mean the danger was over, cautioning that the emergency status could be reinstated if the situation changes. The UN Health Agency first declared the so-called public health emergency of international concern over the crisis on 30th January 2020.
Now, UNICEF says more than 1 million polio vaccines have been destroyed in Sudan. More than 1 million polio vaccines intended for children have been destroyed as a result of looting in Sudan during the upsurge in violence since April, the UN Children's Agency UNICEF told Reuters on Friday. A number of cold chain facilities have been looted, damaged and destroyed, including over 1 million polio vaccines in South Darfur. Hazel Devet, Deputy Director of the Office of Emergency Programs, UNICEF told Reuters in an email. The agency was in the middle of a series of polio vaccination campaigns in Sudan following an outbreak at the end of 2022. Polio, a disease which mainly affects children under 5, can lead to paralysis and death. Africa was declared free of wild polio in 2020, but Malawi, Mozambique and Sudan have reported imported cases since last year. A World Health Organization database shows there have been 28 attacks on healthcare facilities in Sudan since the conflict erupted last month, pitting Sudan's army against the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces.
Now, a UK court has jailed Nigerian senator for 9 years for kidney harvesting plot. A wealthy Nigerian politician, his wife, and a doctor were jailed by a London court on Friday for trafficking a street trader from Lagos to Britain to illegally harvest his kidney for a transplant for their seriously ill daughter. Britain's Crown Prosecution Service said Ike Ekweremadu had been sentenced to 9 years and 8 months in Britain's first illegal organ harvesting prosecution, while his wife Beatrice, 56, was sentenced to 4 years and 6 months. Nigerian doctor Obina Obeta, 51, described by prosecutors as a middleman, was jailed for 10 years, the CPS said. All 3 were convicted in March for conspiring to arrange the travel of a man in order to harvest his organs. President of the Nigerian Senate, Ahmad Lawan, said earlier in the week he had written to the British judicial authorities seeking clemency for Ekweremadu. An opposition senator and former deputy president of Nigeria's Senate, on behalf of the Senate, said it was the first time our colleague is getting involved in this kind of thing.
Now moving over to our next story, questions about monarchy as King Charles III is crowned. Political leaders and experts in diplomacy varied yesterday on the relevance of the monarchy as UK King Charles III was crowned to officially undertake new tasks. They spoke out after news broke out that UK police had arrested key members of an anti-monarchy group planning a protest along the path of King Charles III's coronation procession. They've arrested 64 organizers and seized hundreds of placards. They won't tell us why they've arrested them or where they're being held, a Republic activist said in London yesterday. Republic Chief Executive Graham Smith was one of those arrested before the group had a chance to wave placards declaring, "Not my king." However, speaking to the Citizen yesterday, political and diplomacy experts differed in opinion, with some of them saying the monarchy was a historical sign of prestige, while others believed the system was outdated.
Wrapping up our top stories, African countries venture into the space industry. After decades on the sidelines, African countries are venturing into the space industry, hoping to reap rewards in agriculture, disaster prevention, and security. Ivory Coast, which recently hosted a new Space Africa conference organized by the African Union, has announced the creation of a space agency and plans to build the country's first nanosatellite by 2024. In April, Kenya's first working satellite was put into orbit by SpaceX rocket launched from the United States. The two countries followed African pioneers South Africa, Nigeria, Algeria, and Egypt, a trailblazer which owned the first African satellite sent in space in 1998. According to AU Space Program Coordinator Tidiane Owatera, about 15 African countries have a space agency. Now, the AU in 2018 fostered the African Space Agency, whose headquarters will be in Cairo alongside the Egyptian Space Agency, to promote coordination among AU members. According to a Vienna-based NGO, the Space Generation Advisory Council, African countries have launched 41 satellites since 2016, led by Egypt, South Africa, Algeria, and Nigeria.
That brings us to the end of our top stories, but do stick around. After the break, we cross over to Zimbabwe to speak to Talen Gore, who will fill us in on the news-making headlines that side.
To another exciting episode of Irongo Talk.
We bring jou liefst weer en vertel ook vir julle waar die vis heel moontlik kan byt.
Now, here at Africa Good Morning, we pride ourselves at bringing you the latest news. Here to bring us the latest news from Zimbabwe is Talent Gore. Good morning, Talent.
Good morning, Glenora. Good morning, Diana, and Africa Good Morning.
Good morning to you too. Now, getting into your first story, riches of Robert Mugabe's daughter laid bare in her divorce papers. And we did the story last week. It appears that she owns quite a lot of wealth, unexplained wealth, but I don't want to get into it. Can you get into the story, please?
Yes, apparently the daughter of the late President Robert Gabriel Mugabe owns 25 properties, 21 farms, a Dubai mansion, luxury vehicles, and millions in cash. And they were listed by her estranged husband, Simba Chukore, in his divorce papers. And he's also saying that he needs half of those properties as they were acquired during their marriage, and some of them they were inheritance, and some of them were inheritance and donations. So he's saying that we have to split them in half. Apparently, Bona hasn't said anything in regards to this. It was only said by the estranged husband, who is saying that he needs half of those properties as they were acquired during the tenure of their marriage, and some of them they were inheritance which were given to both of them by the late president. So he's demanding half of those properties, and the properties shocked most citizens who are saying that how and when did she acquire all those properties, especially the farms? During Mugabe's reign, he had this one farm, one one family, one farm policy. And it is quite strange that his own daughter has 21 farms. And this is not sitting well with most of the citizens who are demanding to know when and how Bona acquired all those farms.
I mean, it is very much questionable. Now, getting into our next story, I mean, from riches to rags, but Zimbabweans dumped the Zim dollar in favor of USA amid high inflation crisis. Please give us the details.
Yes, a majority of citizens have dumped the Zimbabwean dollar, with 97% of transactions for basic commodities being conducted in the United States dollar. This was said by a World Bank official yesterday. He also said that the local currency was rapidly losing value. And as I've always been reporting, prices of basic commodities have been skyrocketing with the local currency on a free fall. Some of the goods are now being exclusively sold in the United States dollar. You also find that most supermarkets, they are now saying that their swipe machines or their EcoCash, which is some of the channels in which people use to buy stuff in Zimbabwe, they're saying that their systems are down and they're only requiring the United States dollar. However, the government has said that this is not right. It is not allowed. Is the Zimbabwean dollar is still in use, and supermarkets and anyone who's trading should accept the Zimbabwean dollar. But most shops, retailers, they do not want the Zim dollar. They now want the United States dollar. And some of them have even put up notices saying that we do not want the Zim dollar, they only want the United States dollar. Some basic commodities, they are being sold exclusively in United States dollars. And also you can tell by the Pizza Inn, which is a fast food outlet in Zimbabwe, it is currently rejecting the Zimbabwean dollar.
Now, getting into your last story, on a rather sad note.
Well,
Okay, before we get into
it seems that we have lost talent there, but we are going to take a quick ad break. Actually, we'll take a look at the weather before we return with an interesting video about King Charles III's coronation. Stay tuned. Now, Saturday, the 6th of May, was an interesting day for British citizens. King Charles became the monarch of the United Kingdom and 14 other realms on the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth, in September. But on Saturday, the 6th of May, he was crowned in a ceremony full of pomp, pageantry, and religious significance. For the best part of 1,000 years, the kings and queens of England and Britain have been crowned at London's Westminster Abbey in a ceremony that has changed little throughout the centuries. Let's take a look.
King Charles became the monarch of the United Kingdom and 14 other realms on the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth, in September last year. But on Saturday, the 6th of May, he was crowned in a ceremony full of pomp, pageantry, and religious significance. For the best part of 1,000 years, the kings and queens of England and Britain have been crowned at London's Westminster Abbey. Originally, a coronation was a necessity for a monarch, but it is now a ceremonial event, and no other monarchy across the globe has an event quite in the same style. During the solemn ceremony, Charles took an oath to uphold the law and the Church of England.
God save the King!
Sitting on the historic coronation chair, known as King Edward's chair and containing the Stone of Destiny, he was anointed by the Archbishop of Canterbury, the spiritual leader of the worldwide Anglican Communion, with holy oil consecrated in Jerusalem. Picnic blankets, bottles of Pimm's and face masks of the royal family were all out in Hyde Park on Saturday as hundreds of royal fans gathered around large screens in anticipation of the coronation. For those not able to get a spot along the mall, many pitched up beside one of the many giant screens in London's parks to watch the coronation. Young and old, from Britain and across the globe, tens of thousands of people amassed in central London on Saturday, drawn by the allure of what they said was the chance to witness a moment in history.
We've been really looking forward to this for kind of realistically a number of years. Obviously, we've known it's on the card for some time. It was inevitable it was going to happen. So to be part of history and to experience it, it's a really, really exciting prospect.
Well, I think it's a part of history, isn't it? So to be part of this event is just, it's once in a lifetime, really. So we got up at 3 a.m. to get here for 7 to get the spot.
Yeah, we're pitch dark.
You're pitched up?
But not everyone was excited to join in the celebration. Supporters and members of Britain's main anti-monarchy movement, Republic, began protesting a few hours before the coronation began. Republic was a group founded back in 1983 that campaigns for an elected head of state, and they hoped that this would be their biggest protest ever. They believe Charles's accession to the throne presents the best chance of ending the monarchy, which traces its history back to more than 1,000 years. The protesters gathered mainly in Trafalgar Square along the procession route next to the statue of Charles I, who was beheaded in 1649, leading a short-lived republic.
I don't know, kind of in disbelief that it's really, that we're living in this moment of authoritarianism.
Because I don't believe in hereditary monarchy, and I think this is costing a huge amount of money when lots of people are struggling and the economy is falling apart and the public services are awful, and we need to invest in that and not in Charles and his big party.
Obviously most people here are here to demonstrate peacefully, and that's what I hope happens, and hopefully we get the chance to put our point of view that we should not have an unelected head of state.
Let's take a look at the economic news. Africa Free Trade Area may lift 50 million people out of extreme poverty, says IMF. Africa's continent-wide free trade area, if successfully implemented, could significantly boost economic growth and improve living standards at a time of rising geopolitical tensions and climate change, the International Monetary Fund said in a study. Now, greater trade openness would help countries adapt to climate change and to strengthen food security, including by improving the availability and affordability of food supplies, the IMF said in its Trade Integration in Africa.
Now moving over to Mozambique, HCB announces dividend increase of 11.6%. Dividends distributed by Hydroelectrica de Cahora Bassa to its shareholders increased by 11.6% compared to last year, according to data announced yesterday by the Mozambican state company. At a general meeting, HCB approved the distribution of dividends in the order of 44.92% of the approximately 9.2 billion meticais of the company's net results. A statement on the matter reads.
We'll be right back with your sports news. Do stay tuned.
Now, the English Premier League continued with Manchester United disappointing me and Manchester City remaining on top of the table. So I guess that is a little
Arsenal
bit of good news.
second. Come on, you gotta put us there.
Yeah, well, but here to give us the rest of the sports news is Ari Holgard. Good morning, Ari.
Yes, very good morning, Diana and Glenora. Yes, it's always stressful on the Monday to try and figure out what happened over the weekend. But it's, yes, as you mentioned, some win and some lose. And what happened over the weekend, Arsenal beat Newcastle by 2-0. That kept them in touch with Manchester City, but Manchester City still leading by 1 point with one game in hand. So they've got it all in their own control. It's the result you mentioned was Manchester United that lost to West Ham. And that was 1-0, and that was not a good result for Manchester United, especially regarding trying to stay in the top 4 for Champions League. Newcastle, of course, also lost to Arsenal, so that means that Manchester City, or Manchester United and Newcastle have 65, 63 points respectively on the top there in the top 4. But Liverpool creeping up on them. They've got 62 points now with one game that they've played more. That was because they beat Brentford by 1-0. So it's all big fight between Newcastle, Manchester United and Liverpool in the last few games to try and get that top 4 positions. On to some rugby news. It was the quarterfinals of the Rugby United Rugby Championships, a big game that was played in Cape Town over the weekend, the big rivalry that was a repeat of the final of 2022. It was the Stormers, the home team, that came through to beat the Bulls quite convincingly, 33 points to 21. And that is action from the other quarterfinal, which was Leinster, big threat to win this tournament. They're in good form. They beat the Sharks also very convincingly at home, 35 points to 5. Coming up now, next, it is the semi-finals this coming weekend. So a big game for the Stormers. They actually play at home because Connacht made a bit of a surprise win over Ulster, 15 points to 10. That was a away win for them. That's action from the Stormers game against the Bulls. So the Stormers at home again this coming weekend on Saturday at 4 p.m. playing Irish team Connacht for a place in the final. And they will meet the winners. If they win, they will meet the winners of Leinster that will play against Munster. That is all Irish semi-final. Going on to Formula One racing, it was Formula One that got going again in the United States. That is action from Miami. Quite a fast race and quite a significant win for Max Verstappen, and significant in that he came from 9th on the grid. That's only the 4th time ever in history that somebody came from 9th on the grid to win the Grand Prix. So he came all the way through, beat his teammate there on the right, Sergio Perez. It is Max Verstappen on the left. He won the Miami Grand Prix, so they've got a really impressive car, the Red Bull Honda, winning again. 3rd position, Fernando Alonso, still doing great in his Aston Martin, beating the Mercedes-Benz and Ferrari drivers. And it was in 4th position, George Russell, Mercedes. 5th, Carlos Sainz, Ferrari. 6th, Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes. And 7th, it was Charles Leclerc of Ferrari. So great performance, Fernando Alonso on the podium again in this Miami Grand Prix. On to tennis news, Madrid Open. It was Madrid Open. It's leading up to the French Open, and that is the women's winner, Aryna Sabalenka. She is from Belarus. She's number 2 in the world. She beat the number 1 in the world in the all number 1-2 final. She beat Iga Swiatek of Poland by 6-3, 3-6, and 6-3. So a great win for Aryna Sabalenka, probably or will be one of the favorites for the French Open with Iga Swiatek. And that's Carlos Alcaraz. He's from Spain, 20 years old, turned 20 on Friday. He won. He won against Jan-Lennard Struff, a name that many will not know, but he's from Germany. He was a qualifier, went all the way to the final, and it was Carlos Alcaraz winning 6-4, 3-6, and 6-3 to claim the Madrid Open title.
All right,
and to close quickly, also golf news.
Cut you there. It seems that we have run out of time, but thank you so much for bringing us all the latest sports news.
Absolutely. Lots to talk about. Have a brilliant week, and we talk again tomorrow. Sport. Bye-bye.
That was Ari Holgard with the latest sports news. We'll be right back with our highlights right after this. Let's take a look at the highlights from today's broadcast, just in case you need a quick recap. UNICEF, more than 1 million polio vaccines destroyed in Sudan. COVID-19 no longer a global health emergency, says WHO. Africa Free Trade Area may lift 50 million people out of extreme poverty, says IMF.
And with that, we've come to the end of our show. Don't forget that you can catch Africa Good Morning tomorrow, same time, same place. I am Glenn Rashipura.
And I am Diana Master, and we wish you a lovely Monday ahead.